It is the Anfield Wrap in the world-famous Arkles. It's John Gibbons, Neil Atkinson, and the world-famous, the Liverpool legend, my favourite player growing up, one of the all-time greats to play for the club. Ladies and gentlemen, John Barnes. First, John Gibbons, what a turnout for a Monday night. Greene King Sport, we're delighted to be here, and what a turnout this is.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's it's a day after the game, and I'm sure a few people had a few sore heads this morning, but everyone's come out. But I mean, they've come for Barnsley, haven't they? It's great that the Greene King have thrown this event, and it's lovely the Arkles to have us. And I'd like to pretend that people are here for me and you, but it's this fella. What a player he was, and it's going to be. I'm really looking forward to the next 30 minutes or so to.
Well, this was nearly my local.
Yeah.
Nearly.
Of course it was, yeah.
I lived on Priory Road for a while until Liverpool said we don't see fitting that a Liverpool player should be living on Priory Road. I was moving, and a friend of mine had the dentist on Priory Road, just down the road there, and before my house was ready, I was supposed to stay there for a couple of weeks, but it's a lovely area in it. Right opposite. What's that pub just on the corner there? That's the one. So I just stayed there for about 6 months, so until the club said he got to move out. So this would have been my local. And in fact, I know the Arkles well because I remember it was so funny when I first came to Liverpool. We used to sometimes have to run back from Melwood training pre-season. They said, you got to get fit. Well, that's not far. You have to run up the Queen's Drive. Listen, we're supposed to be fit. With pre-season, you got to run back up. I'd come from Watford with Graham Taylor, which we were ultra fit. We trained really hard. Whereas at Liverpool, it was fantastic in terms of the football, when we played football. But in terms of the fitness work, the players didn't like to run around too much. They love playing football. That's why we were great at football. The last minute, Liverpool was on top. But every time they said fitness work, the players never wanted to do it. So some of the players, and what used to happen is that, you got the Shankly gates just there, and you run along the Queen's Drive, then you come up Utting Avenue, and then the coaches used to wait outside the Shankly gates so that you can actually see when the players come past the Arkles. So they can't see you until you're running along Anfield Road. So some of the players from, not me, no names mentioned, because I came from Watford and we were fit and disciplined, would hitch a lift. And then I'd be running up with Peter Bears on the Queen's Drive and there's Steve McMahon in a car. Now the coaches aren't going to know. But of course, when you're coming up here now, Utting Avenue, you'd have to be dropped off outside here because if the car turns the corner, they're going to see you get out of a car. So this was the drop-off point for the players who didn't want to run. So I know it very well. It's like coming home.
Excellent. There was a game yesterday. We'll start with that. It was a frustrating one, John. Obviously get into the ins and outs of it and what you do when you deal with a side that turns up primarily, not solely, but primarily to play for a draw. But they found themselves bogged down in one. They tried to start both halves fast and couldn't then rouse themselves again. It just feels like nothing's lost or anything like that, but it does just feel a little bit like a missed opportunity.
I have to say that I felt it was going to go that way because with Manchester United losing, then all of a sudden lots of players out. It galvanized them, and I said this is a dangerous game because as much as we beat them 7-0 last year, this year they're not playing well. Lots of players out. I would have preferred if Fernandes was playing. I have to admit.
Same. Yep.
I would have preferred he was playing. But once those young players came in and they played and they defended well and they, so as it was frustrating, but it didn't necessarily surprise me because Man United aren't a bad team. Things aren't going well. The harmony's not right. But when all of a sudden, in the face of adversity, with big players out, players are injured, no one expects you to do anything. Then you come and you put in a defensive performance like that because put it this way, the game 7-0 last year, and even when I've seen Man United play, they weren't getting the blocks that they were getting in as they did yesterday. Because yesterday, every man was really dying for the shirt. So it didn't surprise me. From our own point of view, we did what we did. We huffed and we puffed, and we could have been better, but they made it very difficult for us because they're a good side.
I'm just wondering what you would have maybe thought to do sort of on the pitch if if you were on the left wing or when you played in central midfield. Is there anything do you feel like you would have done in those situations to cope with what Manchester United were throwing at us?
There's not a lot you can do because, when you come back and defend with 11 men behind the ball and you're well organised, and we got experienced players like Varane in the middle, in the middle of the defence. And I thought that Dalot played really well, So once you...
I thought Shaw was great as well.
Yeah, I mean, they all did well. So once you are then committed and determined and together, and in the face of adversity when everyone's writing you off, saying it's got to be another 4 or 5, then you pull together. So from that point of view, I don't know what else we could have done. We got into a few positions where we've made the wrong pass and, we took too long to do something. But generally speaking, it's just one of those games where you have to give it credit to. And as much as you're saying giving credit to Man United because they come and drew 0-0, you know, if it was Sheffield United or someone comes, you expect that. And as much as we may say we don't expect that from Manchester United, I did. This is not the Man United of yesteryear whereby they come and they play open football, because they know if they came and they opened up, they could have lost 5 or 6 again.
Do you think there's a massive thing on that where what gets missed is the self-respect of the players? Those players last season after 7-0, they'll have been waking up the next day, looking in the mirror, all of that sort of stuff, thinking, what's happened to us here? Have we gone through this? I expected the same as you. I was saying to everyone, this is going to be a really hard game, because those players themselves, no one wants to be embarrassed when you play football. No one wants people going, what's gone on there? Yeah. You don't want to be. It was a record defeat for Man United at 7-0. And I just think that you've got to allow for the idea that those footballers will look at each other and in the dressing room they're saying, not again, not today. And that, I think, galvanises you more than anything else. They do not do that to us again today. And I think it made the mind up for them in a really weird way. Getting beat by Bournemouth, the 7-0 the year before, it just makes, and by Munich even, it makes their mind up to say, we just make sure that we don't get made a show of.
And of course, the young players coming in, you know. So as I said, I was disappointed when Fernandes wasn't playing, because I think that he causes disunity within the team when things aren't going well. So yeah, it's just one of those games. But listen, we're second in the league. Would have been top of the league had we won. Things are going well, so I'm not looking at that and being too disappointed.
When we are second in the league, there's a bit of chat around a couple of things that aren't quite working. I think it's worth pointing out before we do that a couple of things that are working. First and foremost, the goalkeeper is a phenomenon, and Van Dijk is, I think he's absolutely back to his best. I mean, this season it's been a pleasure watching him. Since September onwards, after he came back from the suspension, I think he's been absolutely tremendous. Those two can act as the backstop to any title challenge.
Look, I think, listen, I don't necessarily feel that Virgil is a different player than he was last year. The balance of the team is better. We have a midfield who can now protect that. You know, when we play with a back four, as we always do, with 2 attacking fullbacks, there's no team who plays a back four, 2 fullbacks who attack at the same time, and only leave 2 centre-backs to defend. Why we did it was because of our 3 midfield players in front of them. Now, last year we didn't have that. So when we played that way, we got caught on the counter-attack. Now, this year, our midfield has got a much better balance. You know, we're much stronger defensively. We can win the ball. We can get back. So as much as you're right what you're saying in terms of Alisson and Van Dijk, I think the balance of the team is better to help to protect that situation. I had no issues with Van Dijk last year when they're talking about, you know, has he gone off the ball with his injury? He hasn't. It's just that the balance of the team was all wrong, whereby the counter-attack, we were being made to pay for it. So, yeah, the balance is much better. I don't know what you're going to say, the bad part of it, but I think that the situation we have, which would just make it perfect for us, was if we had a number 6, you know. Endo played in, and I thought that was his best game he had yesterday, but McAllister, that's not his position. Bajcetic is really earmarked for that position, and of course, with his injuries not there, we haven't replaced Fabinho. But if you look at Szoboszlai, and you look at, you know, Gravenberch, and you look at McAllister in those positions, we really haven't got an issue. So this year, I've been really impressed, particularly as, if you look at the Luton and the Sheffield United game, we never particularly played sparkling football, but we won. You know, and I think that early on in Jurgen Klopp's tenure, very early on, I think we had to play well to win. Then in the last 3 years, notwithstanding last year, you could see that we could get results without performing. Whereas last year we couldn't. Whereas this year now, you know, we can get results even if we don't play well. And that's why I'm saying the Man United game isn't really an issue, because we're looking and being disappointed with that. But under different circumstances, we would have won that game.
When you were playing, you mentioned before that Liverpool are in a good position and we are a point off the top and handily placed. When did you start looking at these sorts of things? And was it for you, was it about, and as players, was it about just being in the mix at certain times was always important?
March. No matter what happens. And you know, you're talking about from the point of view of looking at it in March and feeling that we've got a good chance of winning because of what's happening. I remember probably my last 2 years at Liverpool, even 95, 96, I left in 97. We were always doing well up until March, and I always felt in March we would fall away, you know, because we were playing good football, scoring goals, and everyone's excited. And I said, don't get too excited. Wait until March, when it's a long season, you know, players lose form, they don't, and you have to not play well and get a point. When even if 4-3 against Newcastle, people remember that, and everyone's excited. I wasn't excited at all. I thought, we're not going to win the league doing this. You know, you have to get a 1-0 win, get a 0-0 draw when you're not playing well. So as much as Villa fans are getting excited, Arsenal fans are all getting excited, maybe we're getting excited, I really wait until March to see what happens, because it's a long season. Players get injured, players lose form. Have you got the squad to continue the depth? Have those players who may lose form still strong enough to get results? So regardless of what happens until then, as long as we're in this area, then we'll have a much better idea.
The bits where there's a view that things aren't quite what we'd hoped for, is outside of Salah. The other 4 lads who play up front, Jota's out at the minute, and I think he was a big miss yesterday, a really big miss yesterday, aren't quite firing as we'd like. Nunez, I thought he actually plays well yesterday. He frustrates people with the offsides, and I understand that I was frustrated with them as well. But I think in terms of, again, sort of the hold-up play, bringing people in, I'd like him to have a bit more confidence. To me, it looks like a lack of confidence now more than anything else. He's not even getting his shots away the way in which he was. It's 10 without a goal. I just want him to get one, because I think if he gets one, I think he can really come alive for us, Nunez.
Well, what do we expect? When they say we're where we expect, we're 1 point off the top. Had we won, we've been top of the league. Why
only lost one game all year.
And not only that, regardless of whether, we have the 3 strikers or scoring loads of goals. Last year we had the strikers, and we look where we finished. So, the fact that we are 1 point off the top and we could have been top, I don't see why people are disappointed with anybody. Of course, Salah will score less goals because this is a new team. This is a new team, which means that we're going to play differently. If you have a look at the way Salah is playing now, for example, because Trent is playing in a different way. When Trent played with Salah 2 against 1, he'd go on the outside, give him some space, whereas now he's playing in a different role. So Salah is not going to be the same player, but he'll create more and maybe score less. But if other people score goals, it's not going to be a problem. So we scored goals. So the dynamics of the team has changed. So I'm not worried at all. Nunez gives 100% all the time. So I've got an issue with Nunez. Nunez is never going to be a Robbie Fowler or Ian Rush or John Aldridge. But they can't do. But no, he'll be a John Barnes. I'm talking about a number 9 goal scorer. But he'll do things that they can't. Now, we want perfection. So if you want Nunez to have the hold-up play, to work hard, that goal against Sheffield United when he chased back and tackle, as well as scoring 30 goals a season, he'll be the best player in the world. But that's not who he's going to be. So, yes, with his confidence, he will finish better and hit the target and make better decisions, because a lack of confidence means he's passing when he should shoot. But as long as he gives 100%, as he does all the time, and he works hard for the team, I don't know, if you're expecting him to be as clinical as Robbie Fowler, he will never be that way, because that's not the player he is. When you talk about footballers, and let's say if Matthew Letizia worked harder, he'd be the best player in the world, but he doesn't. He does what he does. If Teddy Sheringham had pace, he would have been. So if Nunez could finish like Robbie Fowler, if Robbie Fowler could run around and tackle and chase and head and fight like Nunez, so you have to take people for who they are. Yes, he will get better. He can be more clinical. That will come. He's still a young player, but I haven't got any issues with him at all.
When you were a coach, was that your approach? Develop people's strengths. Don't focus on the weaknesses, develop the strengths. Get them to bring the strengths to the party. Is that what you wanted?
Well, you also have to, you don't focus on the weaknesses, but you try and let them improve. So, for example, I remember, not just myself, I remember Ronnie Moran would say, I wasn't here at the time when Rushy first came, and Rushy was in the team, and then, even when I was here, and Rushy would score a hat-trick. And when Rushy scored a hat-trick and he came in, not that Rushy would ever get big-headed or arrogant, but all Ronnie Moran would say to him, you remember when he gave the ball away 3 times? It's for you to concentrate. Yes, you can score goals, but what else can you do? So you don't have to focus on the weaknesses, but they can improve that. But what you have to do is you have to be realistic in terms of your expectations. So therefore, yes, you can work on the fact that, okay, you have to make better decisions of when to pass, when to shoot, be a bit more composed. But you know that, yes, you will get slightly better at that, but he's never going to be, just like Robbie Fowler or John Aldridge is never going to be able to chase around and win headers and hold the ball up like him. So you have to maximize the potential they have by yes, not focusing on, but working on things that they can improve on, but highlighting what they're very good at.
When you signed, it's fair to say you absolutely hit the ground running. You were in great nick from day one.
I ran all the way up here as well. I didn't get a lift, I can tell you. Ronnie Whelan and Steve McMahon in a flipping car.
In a car. There is, for some players, I thought Szoboszlai absolutely looked the part, absolutely tremendous. I think he's maybe, again, the physical job is maybe getting a little bit on for him at the minute. I'm absolutely certain we've got a tremendous footballer.
I agree with you.
Do you ever feel as though, for a few players, they can come in, they can look great, there's a teeny bit of a dip, and then they just manage to find the way again? Because everything we saw from Szoboszlai for the first 2.5 months, it couldn't have been any better. That was the essence of hitting the ground running. And yeah. I feel as though it's maybe got a little sticky for him at the minute, but I expect to see him absolutely flying again in no time.
Well, he did so well that our expectations were probably heightened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I still think he's playing well now, but because he did so well to begin with. Secondly, it's much easier for me to come in. When I came in, me and Peter Beardsley came in, and it was me, Peter Beardsley, Aldo had been there for 6 months before, but he was upheaval at Liverpool because we had 3 new players. You know what I mean? Kenny and Rushy have now gone. Rushy's gone to Juventus. Kenny's retired, and 3 new players. That is upheaval. So therefore, we were fortunate because we came in and learned the Liverpool way. So we just fitted into what we saw. Whereas in football now, it's much harder because football now, every January you sign 4 players, and then the season sign 4 new players. So they have to come in and find their feet in a system or a template of a team that changes all the time. Because if you look at the way we played, especially if you look at what we have done for the 5 previous years with Mo and Mane and a withdrawn centre forward. Now all of a sudden, which we were perfect at, that withdrawn centre forward with my favourite player of Liverpool in the last 10 years, Bobby Firmino. Salah and Mane did what they did because of Bobby Firmino, and they got used to that. Now all of a sudden, we've got a different level of centre forward, so the midfield players are different. The midfield players are now doing the same thing. Mo's job's different, so therefore, it's going through a bit of it's not a revolution, but it's a transitional period whereby, and not only that, because also, those players were all aged between 27 and 31. Good experience at the right time. Now all of a sudden, Henderson, Milner, Firmino, Fabinho, all of these players, Mane, even Salah, they got all, and all of a sudden these young players come in with great potential. If you look at the Diaz's and the Nunez's, the Gakpo's, these are young players coming into a situation, particularly last year when, because of the injury situation, we weren't playing consistently well, and you're asking 22-year-old players to come into somewhere new and be the main players. So they were finding their feet, and in many respects they still are. But and in still finding their feet, we're 1 point off the top. So I haven't got an issue.
You mentioned before about the Newcastle game, and it was interesting hearing you saying you were almost tempering expectations around where people saying, oh, we're going to win the league, and you were like sort of steady on. And because you had that experience, you knew what it took to win titles because you'd done it. And there's players now who are new. We just talked about Szoboszlai and others, and then there's ones like Virgil and Mo who've won it. And does that almost become their role then to be like, listen, this is what it takes to win a title. Let's not get carried away. What you're saying before about March and just emerging as leaders, I guess, in the absence of the players that you mentioned who've moved on?
Well, football's a bit different now because, of course, the players were quite instrumental, more so than they are these days. I remember running around with coming at half-time and he goes, what's going on? I know, but I'm not telling you. Sort it out yourselves. So even before I came, Souness and Dalglish would run the dressing room. They do everything. The coaches just let them get on with it. That's not the situation now. Klopp and his team do everything. So yes, you have the leaders there. Of course, Milner's not there and Henderson. So therefore, players are different now. Players aren't. I'm not talking about they're not leaders, but they're leaders in a different way. Because the players used to lead the dressing room, outside the dressing room, the club. The coaches never used to get involved in if the players had issues, because the senior players did that. So times are different now. But of course, still with Virgil and people there, and now Trent has to come to that. We've lost a lot of. Listen, Jordan Henderson and James Milner never played a lot in the last year, but they were instrumental in being the leaders. Virgil is a different type of a leader, but now with so many new players and young players coming in, it's incumbent on everybody to just have a little bit of faith and temper the expectations a bit. And in tempering the expectations, I expect them to be first or second. So but in terms of the performances week in, week out, and wondering why we're not playing sparkling football, and sometimes people are a bit inconsistent, and Nunez needs to calm down a bit, I haven't got an issue with that at all.
When you look at the week that's coming, first and foremost, is West Ham, League Cup. Got to be an interesting one for him in terms of what he picks, what he does. Arsenal on the Saturday. I expect him to go strong against West Ham and try to bounce into Arsenal. I don't know what you think, but I think I'm not saying he's going to pick his very first 11, what he sees as his first 11 in the game against West Ham, but I expect him to pick a few that might surprise people, because I think he'll think at this time of the season, this is where you get your rhythm, you get your straps, you do the business, you go West Ham, you go Arsenal, you go Burnley, then there's a bit of a break, but you got Newcastle. I think he's going to go for it with them.
Well, last year it was difficult to know what the first team was, the first 11 was, because of so many injuries. Yeah. And I suppose we knew what it was because there were so many injuries, so we knew who was going to play. The 2-3 previous years, we knew what the first team was. So if he didn't go big with his first team players, we knew it. But I don't necessarily feel we know what the first team is now. Because, for example, look at Gravenberch, and Endo. So therefore, to then say we're going to go without, as I said, we knew our first 11, notwithstanding last year what it was. So this year, I really don't know what the first 11 is. He's played completely different times. So, for example, if Gakpo plays, does that mean that we're not going strong, or that's not his first team? So I think that I haven't got a clue what he's going to do. But he's going to go strong. But as to whether that is going to be the same team against Arsenal may not necessarily be the case.
What are you expecting from that game against Arsenal? Because for me, I've had it circled for about 3 months, not least because of the social element. A big Saturday just before Christmas. Everything you could possibly ask for. Big day out, but 5:30 kick-off now as well. Firstly, I'm expecting an enormous crowd. I'm expecting the crowd to be absolutely raucous from minute one. As part of that, the players almost need to our players need to almost not get too swept up in it. Let their players get swallowed up by that. But I think that feels now, it will be what feels like it is. Well, it's first versus second now. Villa will probably win. They've got Sheffield United at home before then, so it might not be first versus second when it kicks off. But it'll feel like an absolutely massive game. What are you expecting from it?
What I've expected from Liverpool for the last 4 years, ever since Jurgen Klopp's been there. Intensity, determination, drive. Arsenal will try and slow the game down because they don't want to play. No one wants to play head-to-head with us. That's what Man United did. No team wants to play that, even Manchester City. So Arsenal would like to slow it down and quieten everything down.
Last year, Arsenal were time-wasting from minute one. In that fixture,
well,
they were time-wasting.
and so were Man
one.
United. Yeah. Everyone does that against us. Apart from Man City, they all do that because you do not want a fast, frenetic game against Liverpool. And Arsenal don't either. They're going to try and, defend deep, try and catch us on the counter-attack, trying to calm everything down and from us. But we also have to play with our heads. We can't get too carried away. And I suppose that is really what's, at times, probably hampening Darwin Núñez. Because sometimes you just got to slow down. Because at times he's playing so quickly all the time. You just got to calm down and make good decisions. So we have to play with our heads as well as our hearts. But of course, the crowd will have a big part to play as well, and I'm sure they will play their part. So this is a game I'm really looking forward to. I'm not necessarily saying I'm worried about it, but this is probably the most worried I've been playing against Arsenal in the last 3 or 4 years, because I think Declan Rice has really come and given them something extra. From a strength point of view, I always felt we could overpower them, whereas now they're quite a strong physical side.
How much do you enjoy going as a supporter now? I asked you before, did you go to the game yesterday? And you said, oh yeah, I was invited along in the boardroom, and you're there as a legend, of course, and that's why you get invited. But I guess as a fan, I don't
get invited. That's my job. I'm an ambassador outside our work, so I'm there working hard, eating lobster and drinking champagne. I can't believe how times have changed. How times have changed from the Arkles pub, a pie and a pint, and I'm flipping drinking champagne and eating lobster. And I don't even want to go out and watch the game. No, I love going, but I still watch the game. I never watch the game as a fan. Obviously, no, I don't. I watch the game from a point of view of what I think the players should be doing or what they should be doing. I don't get caught up in the emotion of it. Of course, when we score a goal, I will be disappointed. But I watch the game, and when the game's going on, I see what positions players are in. So, for example, going forward, I said, well, he shouldn't be there. He better watch that. So, fans go and watch the game and they get excited about the game and they just watch the ball to see what's going on. And it's a great view up where you can see the bigger picture and when they're pushing up, Trent going into midfield. Not too much, Trent. Get back quickly. So I watch the game like a commentator, I must admit. And no commentator what's going on. I really talk about, and it's the easiest thing to do. That's why, the coaches have it much harder, because I always know what they should be doing. You know what I mean? You're in a bad position. Virgil, you should be there. So I never watch the game as a fan, ever.
That's really interesting. Yeah. So, but you live it as a fan after the fact. And that's part of what you're doing around it. You're here tonight because you want them to win.
Listen, when we score, I'm elated. But as soon as we score, I go, right, the kickoff's now, what we're going to do. So I forget about it. And what's the opposition going to do?
Big 5 minutes, boys.
Oh, absolutely. Focus. But I just love watching football from that perspective.
With the season, and you just said a minute or two ago, you expect them to finish from this position first or second. I think they'll finish first or second as well. I don't think third would be a disaster if there was another trophy or two in there as well as they went along the way, John. But do you think that's where not the bar is as such for the rest of the season, but is that your outlook here? This is a side that's more than capable of finishing in top two.
Well, the best team in the country finishes first. They don't win the Champions League. They don't win the FA Cup. They don't win any other cup. The best team in the country finishes first. The second best team in the country finishes second. You can win the Champions League and finish fourth. And if Man City wins all three, obviously, as they did, they're the best team. But from Liverpool's perspective, from Bill Shankly's time, and I felt I played under Bill Shankly, because when I came, everything was what Bill Shankly did. Not sure about getting the lifts up on the drive there, but in terms of the training and everything was the same. And at the start of the season, he says, league is the bread and butter. The best team wins the league. Anything else is a bonus. So, anything else you say, if they finish third and a few trophies in the bag, possibly. But you can never legislate for trophies. You don't know who you're going to play. You could be away at Man City. You're going to beat them. You could or you couldn't. But you should be able to guarantee what you're going to do in the league. So for me, first or second, and I would be delighted. Obviously with first, but any of the top two. We're back in the Champions League. And it's interesting because, when people talk about top four, you ask football fans or ask players, but let's talk about fans. Where are you going to finish? And if any fan says top four, that means fourth. Yeah? Man City aren't saying we're going to be in the top four. No. They'll say first. I'm saying we're going to be first or second. If a football fan says, we're going to be in the top four, it means fourth, third at best. So for me, I would say top four is a disappointment. because I expect us to be first or second. As you say, third isn't a disappointment, but I would be slightly disappointed with fourth. Not meant to put too much pressure on the lads, but in terms of what I see and what I know they're capable of, I would think first or second, but third will be okay.
When you talk about what that takes, that's a lot of wins from this point, is the thing I think this season. That's what they're going to have to find their way through and pull out the bag. For me, I was really pleased with the performance of Bramall Lane, in that I liked that for 20 minutes. I'm sure you were watching it when you're thinking the same thing with your managerial head on. 20 minutes, no one has a shot. Liverpool were 1-0 up, 20 minutes, no one has a shot. And if Liverpool want to have a shot at Bramall Lane, Liverpool have a shot at Bramall Lane. But Liverpool went, you just stay there, and we're going to go from there. That, to me, looks like one of the big differences from last season to this, mentioning the injuries as well. But that idea of being able to go to every place you go to away from home is difficult, but being able to go to grounds in the bottom 10 and say, you're just going to stay there and we're going to do this. Yeah. And that's what they need to do if they're going to get what you want.
Yes, but they're not necessarily going to do that everywhere. They'll do that at Bramall Lane because Sheffield United are one of the bottom three. What we have to understand as well now, you see, is that football goes in cycles, and there was a cycle really between ourselves and Man City for 3 years whereby we lost one game a season. They lost 2 games. They lost one game. They lost no games. One game, and we go through winning all these matches 102 points. I think those days are over. Because you can look at what Man City are doing. You can look at us, look at Arsenal. Are we only going to lose one game this season? I doubt it. Whatever they're doing. But the point I'm making is that we have to give respect to the other teams now. You look at Luton, for example. We're fortunate that, okay, we did it, and it was great that we came back. But that, not last year, the year before, I would have been disappointed had we lost another game or not played well. Whereas now, other teams are improving, and you can see Man City after winning the treble, the hangover from that, and maybe we had a bit of a hangover, not from last year, but a couple of years ago when we did so well for those trophies, because they have to give other teams credit to then say they're going to challenge us.
Do you think, I think this at the minute, I think the quality in the league is staggering. There's sides, so West Ham, really good example. Paqueta is a wonderful footballer. He's such a brilliant footballer to watch, and he's playing for a side who've won a European trophy, but who will probably finish, let's just say, circa 8th. They've got Bowen, cracking player. Aguerd, really good centre-half. You can go through the team. I genuinely could go through the team and talk them up. And I'm looking right the way down the division. Pedro Neto plays for Wolves is my example this year. Fantastic. They're going to finish 13th.
Love him.
He's incredible.
Love him.
And
that is injury problems, but I love him.
I love him to pieces. We're very much on aligned on that one, 100%. I think he's great. And he's going to play for the team that finishes between the 11th and 14th. Yeah. The quality's unreal, I think.
Yeah, because what's happened, you see, because obviously the Premier League started, and maybe 10 years ago, what all teams wanted to do, even teams in the Premier League who weren't the top teams, they looked for great players. Let's sign great players. So therefore, they were signing great players. They spend lots of money. And now the scouting is much better. Yeah. So what they're doing with the scouting now, all teams are saying, we're going to get a player you've never heard of. Pedro Neto, for example. Yeah. Or players who go to Southampton aren't even in there, but go to the lower division the lower teams in the Premier League. And they're signing players for, because they can afford it, 5-10 million pounds, where you can get good players in Spain, Portugal, all over Europe. No one's ever heard of them. And all of a sudden you go, wow, look at them. At Brighton. So therefore it's much harder, because I think a lot of those teams in the past were looking to sign superstar players, and they may have signed 1 or 2 superstar players and just, didn't really develop the squad. Whereas all of the teams down there now are signing players that, to be honest with you, I mean, as much as I should have done my homework, I've never really heard of Dominic Szoboszlai before, to be honest with you. So, when you look at players like that, who Liverpool are signing, and we're going, who the hell is Dominic Szoboszlai? Teams down there are signing players like that, as he mentioned, Brighton, that you've never heard of, and all of a sudden they're going to sell them for 80, 90 million pounds. So therefore, those teams are much stronger and make it much more difficult for the top teams.
Just to sort of start to finish up, we were talking before, and you've been with a lot of the legends today, and Robbie Fowler put a nice picture up, and there's, you're looking at it, and there's about 10,000 games for Liverpool between you, and who knows how many medals. It must be lovely that you still do that.
I'll tell you the interesting thing about that. I mean, we've been doing it for like 20-odd years. The interesting thing about that is, as much as you talk about the Liverpool family, I mean, I've always said the Liverpool family are the fans, the players, ex-players, and we talk about legends. And I don't like the idea. Legends aren't real people. Like William Tell didn't exist. We're all part of a great football club who helped in the history, regardless of whether you played, 500 games or you played 5 games. And as much as we can't help the way the fans see us, fans will always put other players above each other in hierarchy. From a playing perspective, it's not. So there today, Howie Gale, 5 games for Liverpool. Yeah, Neil Mellor was there. He's played 12 games for Liverpool. He's no different to us. Yeah. So that is what Liverpool's all about. So when you talk about us getting together, and this is a real Liverpool thing, because sometimes we're there, and it's not because Kenny Dalglish or John Barnes or Ian Rush is there, he's more important than Nicky Tanner or Howie Gale or anybody else. And that's what it is. So these parties, and of course, but my favourite of all time is Ian Callaghan, and Callie's there through thick and thin. And why I love Ian Callaghan, because you talk about modern football and you talk about the way football has gone. And I remember, do you know the story about Ian Callaghan when he made his debut for Liverpool? Made his debut from Liverpool. He had to go onto Park Road because he's from Toxteth to the thing. He had to get the tram, or a bus, whichever one it was. He had to queue up, and they had to put him to the front because he would have missed the game because there was 100 people in the queue. After the game, he had to walk down onto County Road to get the tram or the bus back home. And then you look at. We wouldn't have done that. As much as running up Uttingham, we wouldn't have done that. And of course, players now is different. But that is why I just love Ian Callaghan. He's so humble. He has got a World Cup winners' medal. He was in the England squad. So for me, Callie is the greatest Liverpool hero of all time. Love him.
Ladies and gentlemen, John Barnes.